All right, so today we're going to deep dive into a mystery that'll really keep you guessing.
Oh, yeah.
Picture this, okay?
Okay.
Salt Lake City,
Mm-hmm.
1964.
Right.
The Jeepsons,
Mm.
a big family,
Yeah.
10 kids are about to sit down for Sunday dinner.
Okay.
You know, the whole 9 yards roast beef.
Yeah.
But there's an empty chair.
Uh,
15-year-old Reed is missing.
okay.
And he didn't just disappear.
Right.
He vanished with his two German short-haired pointers, Bess and Little Ann.
Wow, with the dogs too, huh?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The,
What's really strange is how clean this vanishing act was. Like,
yeah.
no arguments beforehand, no signs of a struggle, not even a note. It's like they stepped out for a walk and into thin air.
It's like a real-life ghost story.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. And the more we learn about this case, the less it fits the mold of a typical missing persons case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so let's walk through it.
Okay.
That Sunday, Reed tells his sister he's going to feed the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Be back in half an hour, tops, you know.
Yeah.
Dinner time rolls around,
Right.
the food gets cold, and still no Reed.
So the family's first thought was pretty reasonable, I think.
Right.
Maybe he got lost hiking with the dogs, had a fall. Something like that. Salt Lake City is surrounded by some pretty wild landscapes.
Yeah.
Easy to picture an accident happening,
Yeah, especially with the dogs in tow.
Right, exactly.
Plus, we're talking about an Eagle Scout here.
Oh, wow, okay.
Reed was active in church, played football, you know.
So the whole image of a responsible kid
Yeah, running away just didn't seem to fit.
didn't fit at all.
Right.
And here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
The police initially thought maybe he ran away to see a girl he'd met while working on a ranch in Wyoming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there was even talk of some missing money, $60 gone, which seemed to back up that idea.
Okay, so a teenage crushed some cash gone missing.
Right.
Sounds like a classic runaway story.
It does, doesn't it?
But what made the police change their minds?
Well, if you look closely, the runaway theory starts to unravel.
Okay.
This girl wasn't a serious romantic interest.
Uh-huh.
The money turned out to have never been missing, and Reed didn't take any belongings with him. It's not the well-planned escape of a love-struck teen.
Right.
It's a disappearance with no clear motive.
So if he didn't run away, what were investigators left with?
Well, there was a possible sighting of Reed near a Catholic school
Okay.
by a family friend on that same Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
though it was never confirmed.
Right.
It made the police start thinking maybe something worse had happened.
Okay.
Maybe Reed didn't run away. Maybe he was a victim of foul play.
That's a heavy thought.
Yeah.
And sadly, things take a dark turn for the Jeepsons from here.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The weight of not knowing, the constant wondering, the judgment from the community, it all took its toll.
Yeah, it's a good reminder of how these cases impact everyone involved.
Right.
The ripple effect is huge. A year after Reed disappeared, his father, struggling with the immense grief, tragically took his own life.
It's a stark reminder that the trauma of losing someone, especially under such unclear circumstances, can have devastating and long-lasting consequences for those left behind.
Absolutely.
It's essential to remember that support systems and mental health resources are crucial for families going through something like this.
They really are.
And for the Jeepsons, the search for answers continued,
Mm-hmm.
even as years turned into decades.
Wow.
It seemed like the trail had gone cold until a potential break in 2010.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hikers found a human skull not far from the Jeepsons' home, reigniting hope that maybe finally they'd get some answers.
That must have felt like a roller coaster of emotions for them.
It must have, yeah, finding the skull, hoping it's Reed, and then
What happened?
DNA testing showed the remains weren't Reed's.
Oh, no.
They belonged to a young man named Daniel No, who went missing while hitchhiking in 1978. A sad case.
Yeah.
But it highlights something interesting.
These seemingly separate disappearances can sometimes be connected in unexpected ways.
It's like a reminder that even though years pass, these cases are still active and can intertwine.
Yeah, they can.
What happened next with Reed's case?
Well, the discovery of Daniel No's remains actually had a positive outcome for the Jeepsons.
Oh, good.
It prompted the Salt Lake City Police Department to officially reopen Reed's case.
Okay.
With advancements in forensic technology and their renewed attention, it felt like there was a chance to finally uncover what happened to him.
So they're taking another look at the case with fresh eyes and new tools.
Exact.
And it sounds like this is where things start to get really strange.
It does.
Did this renewed investigation lead to any new clues?
You could say that.
Okay.
It wasn't a high-tech discovery or some brilliant detective work that cracked this case open. It was something completely unexpected.
What was it?
A new family moving in next door to the Jeepsons into a house with a chilling secret buried in the backyard.
Okay, now I'm hooked. A secret in the backyard. This sounds like we're about to enter a whole new level of weird.
Uh-huh.
What exactly did they find?
Remember all that media coverage about the case being reopened?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out someone was paying attention.
Yeah.
A woman, we'll call her Miranda, saw the news and had a light bulb moment.
Okay.
She and her family had moved into the house next to the Jeepsons years ago.
Right?
And she remembered finding something disturbing while they were landscaping the backyard.
Okay, so something in the backyard next door to the Jeepsons.
Yeah.
This can't be good.
No, it wasn't.
What exactly did Miranda find?
She was digging a trench for her son's airsoft games.
Yeah.
When she hit something buried a few feet deep.
Oh, no?
And it wasn't just any buried treasure, it was plastic bags filled with dog bones.
Dog bones.
And not just scattered bones, they were meticulously dismembered.
Hold on. Dismembered dog bones buried next door to where Reed disappeared.
Yeah.
That chills me to the bone, literally.
It's pretty creepy.
What did Miranda do?
Well, she and her family were understandably creeped out.
Yeah.
They showed the bones to a doctor neighbor.
Okay.
And believe it or not, ended up throwing them away.
They threw them away.
Wow.
Wow, I can't imagine throwing something like that away.
I know. It's crazy, right?
But at the time, they didn't know the significance.
Right.
So what made Miranda connect the dots?
When she saw those news reports about Reed's missing dogs, the light bulb went off.
Wow.
She contacted the police, showed them the photos, and suddenly the investigation took a sharp turn.
I bet finding dismembered dog bones buried in plastic bags is a pretty big red flag.
It is.
It's not like someone's beloved pet suddenly died and they decided to bury it like that.
No, not at all. And remember, plastic bags weren't common in households back in '64.
Right?
But they were used in medical settings. The police immediately thought this burial method was suspicious.
Okay.
If these were Reed's dogs, could his remains be buried nearby? They brought in cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, the whole shebang.
Wow.
But sadly, they didn't find anything.
That's a huge letdown. So much hope, only to end up empty-handed again.
It is.
But this had to give them some new leads, right? The dog bones, the plastic bags. It all points to something sinister.
It does. And when they started looking into the history of the property, they found a connection that was both fascinating and terrifying.
Okay, what's that?
Remember, this house was built in 1964.
Yeah.
The man who built it, we'll call him Dr. Hill, was an orthopedic surgeon, a bone doctor.
A bone doctor.
Who lived a few blocks away at the time.
Wait a minute. The dogs dismembered with what could be surgical precision were buried in the backyard of a bone doctor.
Yeah.
That's way too much of a coincidence.
It really is.
What are the odds?
It's a chilling detail, to say the least.
Yeah.
And remember those plastic bags?
Yeah.
Not typical for a household back then, but very common in a medical setting. Dr. Hill instantly went from being an anonymous neighbor to a person of interest.
Okay, so we have a bone doctor living near the Jeepsons in '64, building the house where the dogs are found buried.
Right.
But was there anything else that connected him to Reed?
Well,
did they know each other?
The Jeepsons barely knew Dr. Hill.
Right.
Their focus was on finding Reed, not on casual acquaintances.
Right.
But what's really unsettling is that whispers had circulated about Dr. Hill for years.
Oh, really?
Rumors of sexual abuse.
What?
Specifically targeting minors.
Well,
even some of his patients.
Well, hold on. A bone doctor with a history of alleged abuse living so close to the Jeepsons when Reed disappeared. How did this not come up in the initial investigation?
That's the tricky thing about looking back at cases from decades ago.
Yeah.
Social context matters.
Right.
Back in the 60s, child abuse was rarely discussed openly. It was taboo, often swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And think about how the police were initially focused on the runaway theory. They might have completely missed other possibilities.
Right.
Especially something as sensitive as potential abuse by a respected figure in the community.
That's a really good point. It's like the social norms of the time created a blind spot in the investigation.
Yeah.
They might have disregarded anything that didn't fit the narrative they had already built.
It's possible.
So, knowing all this, did the police confront Dr. Hill about the dog bones?
They did, and his reaction was bizarre.
What do you mean?
He claimed he knew nothing about the bones.
Okay.
And even said he wanted the police to find Reed's killer.
Oh.
which is a strange thing to say when Reed hadn't been officially declared dead.
It's almost like he was playing mind games with them.
He seems that way.
Did they have any other evidence to go on?
They gave Dr. Hill a voice stress test,
Oh,
which he seemed to intentionally sabotage.
really?
He kept giving false answers to simple questions,
Like what?
like his name and address.
He was messing with them. But aren't voice stress tests kind of unreliable anyway?
You're right, they're highly debated.
Yeah.
Some experts say they're about as accurate as flipping a coin.
Okay.
So even if Dr. Hill had passed, it wouldn't have definitively cleared him.
So they couldn't pin him down on the voice stress test, and they hadn't found any physical evidence directly linking him to Reed.
Right.
Where did they go from there?
They were determined to find something. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
They searched Dr. Hill's former house, the one he lived in, while building the house where the dog bones were found.
Okay.
But nothing turned up.
Hmm.
They even searched the basement of the house next door
Yeah.
when a plumbing issue forced them to dig up a section of the foundation.
Oh, wow.
But again, nothing.
It's like they hit a wall, all these dead ends, all this suspicion swirling around Dr. Hill, but no way to break through.
It's incredibly frustrating.
Did the police explore any other theories besides Dr. Hill's potential involvement?
They had to consider all angles.
Right.
A random kidnapping seemed almost impossible, logistically speaking.
Yeah. I mean,
For a stranger to take Reed, they'd have to have been watching the house, waiting for the right moment.
right.
Then they'd have to overpower a teenager and somehow manage to disappear with two large protective dogs without anyone noticing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. You can see the general picture, but the details are fuzzy.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Now, the police initially dismissed the idea of grooming because Reed came from a close family.
Right.
And I think that's a bit short-sighted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, grooming often happens gradually, subtly, without the family ever realizing what's going on.
Right.
And remember, this was a time when these topics were rarely discussed.
That's true. What might seem obvious to us now, the red flags of manipulative behavior could have easily gone unnoticed back then,
Exactly.
especially if it was someone the family trusted someone, like, say, a doctor.
Exactly. So while we can't say for sure what happened, the possibility of grooming, especially with Dr. Hill's alleged history, can't be ignored.
Yeah. It's unsettling to think about, but it makes sense.
It does.
So we have the kidnapping theory pretty much debunked, and grooming as a disturbing possibility. Were there any other avenues the investigators looked into?
They also considered the possibility of a crime of opportunity.
Okay.
Maybe Reed went to visit someone that afternoon, or he ran into someone while walking the dogs, and something went terribly wrong.
So it's not this elaborate plan, but a chance encounter that escalated into something horrific.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Right.
But without any witnesses, it's incredibly difficult to piece together what might have happened.
Yeah.
And sadly, with Dr. Hill's passing in 2016, any answers he might have had died with him.
It's almost unbearable to think about a family searching for answers for decades, only to be left with more questions.
It is a very sad case.
But even with all the loose ends, all the unanswered questions, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive?
Wow.
What can we learn from Reed's story?
I think Reed's case really highlights how the passage of time, social attitudes, and even just plain luck can impact an investigation.
Yeah.
If Miranda hadn't seen those news reports, those dog bones might have stayed buried forever. Another piece of this puzzle lost.
It makes you wonder how many other cases are out there with missing pieces just waiting to be found.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of being observant, speaking up when something feels wrong, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem. Even decades later, someone might hold the key to unlocking a mystery like this.
It's both sobering and hopeful. There's a chance someone out there has information that could bring closure to the Jeepsons, a family that's endured so much pain and uncertainty.
I hope so.
If you have any information, no matter how small, please contact the Salt Lake City Police Department at 801-799-300. You can make a world of difference.
You never know what detail might be the missing link. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. How well do we really know the people around us? Our neighbors' acquaintances, the people we interact with every day. We often take those interactions for granted, assume a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, we do.
But there might be hidden stories, secrets lurking beneath the surface, just waiting to be uncovered.
It's a reminder that reality can be far stranger and more complex than fiction. And sometimes the most ordinary-seeming people can harbor the darkest secrets. So stay curious, stay observant, and never underestimate the power of a single detail. You never know what mysteries you might uncover or what impact you might have in bringing justice to light. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.